Over the capital, lights moved where no aircraft should have been, drifting and stopping in patterns that made trained eyes uneasy. If this was only a mistake, why did so many people see the same impossible sky? In the summer of 1952, Washington was already a city on edge, carrying Cold War tension beneath its monuments and federal buildings. That made every strange light above the Capitol feel larger than a private sighting. This was not a remote desert or a lonely farm road, but the most watched airspace in the country. When something unusual appeared here, it crossed from rumor into national concern almost immediately. The first reports came from ordinary people, and then from professionals whose work depended on reading the sky correctly. Their descriptions did not sound like a single confused glance, but like repeated encounters with something moving deliberately. On radar screens, operators reported targets appearing and vanishing in ways that challenged routine tracking. The mystery deepened because the lights were not only seen, they were also said to have been detected by instruments. That pairing of eyes and radar gave the episode its lasting power. A light in the sky can be misread, but a light that seems to answer a radar return feels harder to dismiss. Witnesses described objects that seemed to hover, then accelerate, then pause again, as if the rules of ordinary flight had loosened. The motion was not graceful in a theatrical way. It was precise, controlled, and deeply unsettling. Air traffic and military crews were suddenly trying to make sense of a sky that no longer felt predictable. In a city built on command and control, uncertainty itself became part of the story. The most compelling detail is the setting itself. This happened above the seat of American power, under constant observation and within reach of multiple agencies. If a strange aerial event could happen anywhere, why here and why then? Reports spread quickly enough that the case became more than a local curiosity. Once the Capitol was involved, the question was no longer whether someone had seen something, but what kind of thing could move like that? Then came the first wave of official attention, and with it a sharper kind of scrutiny. The sky over Washington was being watched by people trained to separate weather, aircraft, and error from something genuinely unknown. Some accounts placed the most dramatic activity over several nights, with reports rising, fading, and returning in clusters. That repeating pattern matters because random mistakes rarely seem to gather and return with such persistence. A second detail that refuses to sit quietly is the behavior of the lights around the city. They were not described as racing blindly across the horizon, but as if they were choosing where to be seen. That idea, of course, is unsettling because it suggests intent. Whether the source was unknown technology, misidentification, or something rarer, the witnesses were not describing a simple streak of light. Radar operators reportedly saw returns that did not match the expected paths of commercial or military aircraft. If the instruments were behaving normally, then the question shifts from what was imagined to what was actually present. That is where the case becomes especially hard to flatten into a single explanation. A visual report can be mistaken, but a visual report paired with instrument data creates a stubborn kind of uncertainty. The Capitol's air defenses were serious business, and any unexplained contact would have demanded attention. Even a brief anomaly could trigger concern if it appeared near restricted corridors and sensitive government airspace. Supporters of the extraordinary interpretation point to the combination of witnesses, radar, and the sheer audacity of the location. They argue that whatever was seen above Washington behaved as if it knew it was being watched. Still, the era itself offers a competing lens. Hot summer air, radar anomalies, and the pressure of wartime nerves could all distort what people thought they were seeing, especially in a city primed for alarm. Skeptics question whether every radar return was truly independent, and whether some lights may have been stars, planets, or aircraft seen under unusual conditions. Yet that explanation does not fully erase the consistency of the reports. The most difficult part is the witness sequence. Different people, different vantage points, similar unease. When separate observers describe the same strange motion, the story gains a texture that feels larger than coincidence. There is also the matter of timing. because the reports did not arrive as one isolated flash and disappear. They unfolded across a tense stretch of nights, leaving the impression of a phenomenon that returned to the same stage. That persistence is what keeps the Washington Flap alive in memory. A single strange evening fades, a sequence of nights in the heart of the nation leaves a mark that never quite settles. Investigators and journalists tried to separate solid observation from rumor, but the record remained frustratingly mixed. Some details sharpened under scrutiny, while others blurred, as if the event resisted being pinned to one clean explanation. That mix of clarity and confusion is part of why the case still matters. The strongest accounts are not perfect, yet they are vivid enough to leave open the possibility that something genuinely unusual passed overhead. If the lights were aircraft, they would have had to move in ways that challenged the expectations of the time. If they were not aircraft, then the question becomes what kind of presence could be so visible and so elusive at once. The official response leaned toward practical explanations, especially once public attention intensified. But practical explanations can calm a city without fully satisfying the people who saw the lights with their own eyes. That is the emotional center of the Washington case. A capital city, a restless sky, and observers who felt they were witnessing something just beyond the reach of normal language. Even now, the event seems to hover between record and legend. What remains unresolved is not only what the lights were, but why the episode took hold so powerfully. Some mysteries fade because they are small. This one lingered because it touched authority, technology, and the unknown all at once. Even the skeptical reading leaves a residue of unease, because the reports were made by people accustomed to careful observation. When trained eyes and instruments both hesitate, the story becomes harder to close than it first appears. Perhaps the lights were a convergence of misread signals, atmospheric conditions, and human expectation. Or perhaps, for a few nights over Washington, something unfamiliar entered the most guarded sky in America. That question is why the Washington Flap still endures. It is not just a story about strange lights, but about the moment a modern nation looked up and could not fully explain what it saw.